Welcome to the Real Estate Marketing Podcast. My name is Jerome Lewis. I'm your host for today. The Real Estate Marketing Podcast is the podcast where we talk marketing, tech, business, and leadership. We talk these things for real estate agents, real estate investors, and real estate entrepreneurs. The Real Estate Marketing Podcast is a podcast that has two purposes. Purpose number one, to educate and inform our audience and listeners. Purpose number two, to spotlight you, your business, your service. Stephen, to spotlight you, your business, your service, or your product in a way that provides value to you, including market exposure and content creation. With that, we have a very special guest, Stephen Whiting. Stephen Whiting is the co-CEO of StreetText, an ad tech platform integrated with Meta, giving business agency level ad capabilities in-house. Stephen has worked with Meta since the day it opened ads in the newsfeed in 2012. StreetText has worked extensively in the real estate industry, and customers have generated over 5 million leads, translating into hundreds of millions in value. StreetText now serves other industries and agencies alongside real estate. Stephen is also a husband and father of two incredible kids and is lucky enough to live in British Columbia, a paradise for outdoor enthusiasts. Stephen, I'm excited that you're here. Welcome to the show.
Oh, I'm very excited to be here as well. And I'm just pumped even to be on your podcast. As I was mentioning just before we started, I love all the tech you've got built in. I can tell you are a tech-focused systems guy, and that you're me too. I love it. I love that.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I'm excited, and like you're right. Before we got started, you said that I was excited. I guess I was blushing a little bit because not a lot of people can see that and notice that, and I appreciate you saying that. So, Stephen, please tell us what got you involved. How do you get to where you got to today, like involved with StreetText and being involved in real estate ad agency? Give us a little bit about your story.
Sure. Yeah. A quick background. So, years and years ago, I mean, even prior to 2012, I did sell real estate, and sort of through 2008, 2009, 2007. And during that market, I had an incredible business partner. And this was early days before there was smartphones, like before there was an Apple store, before all that kind of stuff. We would be showing houses, and we would leave a listing. And if you wanted to know what the price was of the listing across the street, you actually had to go back to the office to find out. Isn't that crazy? Like, if you think about it.
It is crazy. I can't even imagine.
Not long ago, but a lot has happened. And so my business partner, or my colleague in real estate at the time, she said, "Oh, wouldn't it be cool if you could text a number to a number somehow on a for sale sign, and the number could come back on your phone, and then we could just know what that was. We don't have to phone the listing agent, or our clients could do it." And so anyways, that actually what was created initially the name StreetText. And so StreetText became this texting tool in Canada, which still exists today. I mean, you'll see services out there. You'll probably see some sign writers that have a short code number that you can text. But that was a nice to have product, not really a must have product. And so for the listeners here, I mean, what I mean by that is real estate agents at the time, they liked it, but it was just a part of their marketing. It wasn't necessarily going to drive their decision. It wasn't what they were super focused on. And it was also a pretty technical hurdle to teach people how to use the technology, get signs printed and made and put up on their signs. Lots of challenges. But some of our real estate clients said to us at that time, we love the fact that the sign writers generate leads. I just wish it could generate more leads. And, so we spent some time thinking about that question. And that was early days where Facebook at the time, which is obviously now Meta, but the Facebook product itself was just introducing news feed ads. And again, for most people, that's all you remember. There's always been ads in the news feed, but it wasn't always like that. It used to be that the only ads that showed up in Facebook were actually up on the top right. And there was a couple spots, and they were awkward, and they didn't really look that good. And Facebook was beginning to work with ads in the news feed. And we started testing that, and I got a great story. If we have time, I can go into how we cracked that.
I would love to hear that story. So let's hold that story.
Okay.
Because it's going to come right after this. So, because you mentioned ads, I want to hear you answer the question: do ads work?
Oh,
then I want to hear your story. Yeah.
I mean, ads are. Not everybody has to grow with ads, and I don't want to force the point that people need to rely on ads or marketing. But to me, ads is predictable revenue. Ads is a tap that you can turn on or off. It is incredible way to scale your business. And I would say that even businesses that don't really rely on ads, they probably have they look at it, they think about it, or they need to, you know, consider it at least. And so ads work incredibly well. There have been hiccups and challenges along the way, which we can dive into some of the stories. But in the world we live today, it's so democratized in the sense that, you know, in the past you'd have to spend lots of money. Now you can test things for just $5. You know, you could have something up and running. If you wanted to have instantaneous traffic to your new offer you just created, or your new landing page, or some new idea that you want to test, you know, you could phone a whole bunch of people to get their thoughts on it, or you could just spend $10 or $15 in ads, and it will tell you how well your new idea is. And that's what I love about ads. Ads is this, you could instantly drive people where you want them to go, and quickly test that. And if you're kind of the personality that loves to test and iterate like I do, I think ads is one of the most exciting things that we have the ability with businesses today.
Excellent. Thank you for sharing that. So you were about to tell us a story. Can you tell us that story?
Yeah, and I think this tailors in quite well too, because, you know, so in those early days, like I said, we had this nice to have product. So we were selling the original street text service for $15 a month. That SignWriter tool, and it was tough going. And we had raised some money at the beginning, and we're at a stage now where I bought a home. I have my first daughter on the way, and that business is like nosediving in terms of revenue. No more revenues coming on, and it's shrinking. But we've got these clients asking for more leads. I'm playing with the news feed, and I had one client in particular that gave me, I think originally like maybe $700 of ad money I could just play with on his account to try to get something working, and nothing had worked. And this is the thing about ads that is interesting. As powerful as ads are, you do need to have the right messaging and the right copy. And I mean, I know, Jerome, you know this well, but for the listeners, like sometimes you can be quite close, but not quite right. And this is a perfect story for that. So here I am renovating my house. Things are not looking good. The business is not doing well. I'm pretty stressed out. Like I said, I got my daughter coming, and I drive off to Starbucks to take a break, and I launch one more ad. And I think I had like another $50 left of this real estate agent's budget that he wanted me to spend on campaigns. And I tried one last ad idea. So I create this ad, build it, and I go home, and I'm back on my floor, chipping up on the floor, working on the floor. And my phone is just buzzing and buzzing. And I'm like, who's trying to get a hold of me? But I wasn't really in the mindset, you know, my mindset, I was frustrated with the floor. And I had set up early days back then. I'd used a tool like a Zapier, basically to notify me if a lead was coming in. And I came to my phone, and it was filled of notifications. New lead, new lead, new lead, new lead. Like I must have had, I mean, I had only launched it a few hours before. I must have had 50 or 60 leads already. This was the early days of Facebook, right? And I knew in that moment that we had cracked something. And that began what is our company today. And then it just took off from that point on. And I knew in that moment we had saved the company, just seeing all those leads come through. And what's interesting is that Street Text, our platform, one of the things that we do, our ethos is like, if an ad's working, we actually template it in the system so somebody else can come and use it. And that same ad I created that day, many years ago, is still working today on the ads.
Wow.
So that's another thing to keep in mind. Is sometimes the creative can change, or you can try a different image on it, but the structure and copy, it still works. It's incredible.
Thank you for sharing that. So we are tech nerds and marketing nerds, so we understand copy and creative, but not all our audience does. So can you help us understand? I think copy is important, copywriting. Could you tell us what copywriting is, and then tell us what creative is?
Sure. Yeah. Thank you for that. So the copy is typically just what the text you're going to see on an ad that you're reading. And the reason a lot of people will use the word copy, I find, is like it's important that the text reads a certain way so it resonates with the audience, like it resonates with the person that's reading it. And when you have good copy or good text in the ad, people engage with it. If it's wrong, people think, oh, it's not for me, and they kind of skip by. And what was interesting about that story I shared is that I only had made a few changes to the copy or to the advertisement to the text. And I actually had the same image I was using before. I only made a few tweaks, but that combination of good copy that read and resonated with somebody when they saw that ad on Facebook at that time made all the difference for someone becoming a lead. And that has stayed tried and tested. Like we have many, many times wanted to go out and try different ads and ideas. and often they just fall flat on their face. Like that, what you say really matters, and it's what somebody's reading, what they're perceiving when they read it. And so that's the copy part. And then the creative part typically is going to be like the image you're using in the ad, or maybe a video that you're using in the ad, or, you know, the additional creative content to sort of like put the whole ad together. Now we've got the copy, the text, and we got the creative component. That's I mean, and those are my definitions, if you will. There's other marketers that'll have variations on that, but that's how I think of ad copy and creative.
No, I think those are excellent. I would like to hear. I want to go a little bit dark, and I want to talk to the people that have doubts that this stuff actually work, because that's what I deal with a lot. People are like, "Oh no, I don't. It doesn't work. I spent $5. I didn't get a lead." I want to hear you talk a little bit about that. So I don't have any particular question right now. Do you have some insights on what I just said? And
yeah. I mean, we've heard it a lot.
Yeah.
We've worked with now, you know, thousands upon thousands of agents. And I think one of the first aha moments that happens in a product like ours is actually that exact point that you just shared, which is, and we designed a trial process in our product where you could come and for free, you don't have to use street text, like you don't have to pay anything, you don't even need a credit card on our application. You will still spend money on ads on the Facebook component part, but you could now essentially launch some of our best ads. And the first thing that that first aha moment is, oh my goodness, it actually works. Like you launch an ad and within 24 hours, you've got leads showing up in your system. And that's the first, I would say, aha moment that really happens for people, because now that it works, okay, well, the next thing is I need to talk to these people. The next thing is like, how am I going to incorporate this into my business, et cetera, right? All the additional things. But when I think someone discovers that or experiences sort of like that, just the same way I described, where all those notifications were showing up on my phone those many years ago, I then knew it worked, you know, and that's that same question. And so I agree. I think a lot of you will have that concern, or a lot of your listeners will have that concern. You know, you can speak to someone like Jerome, there's others out there, or you can come to a tool like ours and try something that's already worked. That will give you the confidence to then iterate on that. But that's how we've designed our platform, is we take all the best performing ads. We have millions of dollars of ad spend behind some of these ads. And then we show you how many people have engaged with them, what the cost per lead is, everything. So if you launch it, you're probably going to get a similar result.
Okay. And could you share, you mentioned millions of dollars of ad spend. Let's say 2 or 3 things that really jump out to you, like which actually, before I go there, tell us about street text, because we haven't talked about it directly yet. So tell us about that.
Sure. Yeah. So so what street text is, or what we do is we make it super simple for real estate agents to, you know, generate leads for their business, or new opportunities that can turn into obviously home sellers and home buyers, and even our home buyer ads, if you will. Like a lot of agents are like, oh, I just want sellers, but you would be amazed at how many sellers are sitting in your buyer leads as well. And we can talk more about that later. But the point is that we make it really easy. And so what I mean by that is that all those templates I was describing are available to you. So when you log into an application, you don't need to know how ads work or how Facebook works. You don't need to like know about how the housing category works, or like what you can say on an ad or what you can't say on an ad. All of that we've taken care of. If things are changing on the ads manager, don't worry. Our system handles it. Any update that happens, we handle it. And so what we've really got is we've got a nice simple system that you can log in, and all you need to do is pick the templates that you like, the ads, maybe fill in a couple fields that are important to you, because we limit everything that you like. If, for instance, the copy I mentioned, we lock it down, and you can only make small changes based on what's important to you. But we know the copy works. That's why we do that. And then you just hit deploy, and that's it. And then within 24 hours, watch how the ads perform and how the leads start coming into your system. And then you have full control. I mean, you can turn them off. You can launch more. We got tools in there that do automatic split tests. I mean, there's so much built into the platform to help you become a good advertiser and marketer. But in essence, we make the kind of the A to B of, I don't know anything about ads, or maybe I've even run ads on the ads manager, but I just don't have the time to like keep building out campaigns or testing stuff. Come to Street Text. It's all done for you. Then essentially much easier.
And is it fair to say that your platform, because it's like, what would you say to somebody who's like, I could just go right in Facebook and try this stuff?
And you totally can. But you'd be amazed at how many people used to run their own ads and now they run them on Street Text. And the reason is that a lot of the ads they were running on their own, I mean, they probably found something from a street text in the past, or someone that was coaching them, and that platform and template exists in our tool. And so you can go in and try to duplicate ad set, your whatnot, but it's still time spent.
And technical and
And our time, and I'll just hint at some other things that are coming even in the next few weeks. But I mean, our system can essentially auto deploy ads for you. It can keep those ads. If performance is dropping, it's automatically changing them and updating them. Like you would have to, versus hiring an agency or really training yourself on this. If you just use street text, it's all done for you. So I mean, those are the reasons. But again, if you've got if you've got a lot more time than money, and this is a fair place to start, for people, by all means, learn the ads manager and run your own ads. Like that's if you still have to spend money on street text. And so, if you've got more time than money, go learn it. You can do it. But if you just want to focus on more the business side, or, phoning up, calling leads, you don't want to spend time on the ad side, then we could be a good solution potentially.
Yeah, and I want to add to what you're saying. I'm a huge advocate of go learn and implement and learn what you want to learn. But when it comes to some of the more technical stuff, especially like marketing, I highly advise that people hire professionals. And why I'm thinking about like Facebook ads, especially specific to real estate, is because what you mentioned earlier, that special housing category. Like that is a nightmare getting your accounts up and down. It's such a headache. So could you talk about that and how street text helps make it easier for people to get started?
Yeah, that's actually a really good question. So for those of you that don't know, or you're new to that, the housing category is a bunch of rules that came in that Facebook had to adjust to based on how they used to run ads, and they were not compliant with those rules. And so the housing category is a special class of that you have to designate when you run an ad. And if you don't designate it when you're running the ad, your ad will be disapproved. And you can only have so many disapprovals until you run into some serious account problems. But when you select it, you lose a lot of your targeting options. So you can't be as granular with the ad targeting. And you also are limited in the US, as an example, like to 50-mile radius of where you're going to be running an ad. And so for a lot of people, they say, well, I just want to focus on a specific couple zip codes, or, I don't serve this whole massive area. And so we've got a lot of tips and tricks, which we can talk about to kind of like help narrow that in and allow you to just really focus on the area that you want to work on. But more importantly than that, one of the ones I'll just share right now that's so powerful. If you took nothing away from this podcast and you're running your own ads, this little trick is unbelievably powerful. And this is a real estate only thing. It doesn't work for other businesses as much. Because of the 15-mile radius, when you're running an ad, you're typically targeting a large amount of people. Right? Sometimes you're in a small town and it's okay because it's just farmland around you and it's just a small town. It's not so bad. But in a lot of things, you're touching into other towns, or you're touching into other areas, or you're in a larger area. Like think of LA and you're trying to find one spot, right? And you got 15-mile radius. So one of the things that we developed in our tool is something called a 3-ad split test, and it would run contrary to traditional testing. And what I mean by that is that what a lot of marketers would tell you is you should not be running ads that essentially compete with yourself, or you should try different variations of the ad to find the one that's working. And we do all of that too. But what we found is that when you do run a 3-ad split test, so you launch the exact same ad, and our system will do it again automatically for you, but you launch 3 of them, same copy, same creative, because the area is so large, in the first 500 impressions, Facebook is doing its find the right audience. And so what you're actually split testing is not the creative, but the audience. And so in about a 24-hour period, you might find that one of your ads is generating $20 leads, one ad is maybe generating $7 leads, and another ad is generating $3 leads. But if you had never done the split test, you might have ended up with one of those 3. You don't know which one. So we've had it many times where people end up with the $20 leads and they're like, oh, it's not working very good, or my leads are way too expensive. And we're like, did you do a split test? Did you try it? Or we go, now let's do a split test on your $20 leads. And suddenly we end up with $3 leads or $5 leads. And it's because what's happening is that we're forcing Facebook to test different audiences with the same creative and same copy. And then you pick the one that's best performing for you. And that one trick in the real estate world has saved our clients hundreds of thousands of dollars in ad spend of just because otherwise they just leave the ad running and it's maybe running at 18 or 20 bucks a lead, and it could have always have been at $5 as an example, but they wouldn't even know.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. Could you talk about everybody? Some people, I'm going into, I like to do this thing where I go and I become the person. And I'm thinking about people like brand new, I don't know, this doesn't work, but I want to try it. So what kind of budget should I be thinking about if I want to start to run some ads, test them stuff out and see if it works?
I'm hoping it's less than you think, like for people that are listening. And so we have many real estate ads that are running at $5 a day, for example. We typically won't see anything running below $3. So that's sort of we recommend people start with a budget of say at least like $9 a day on an ad initially. But again, not crazy money in the sense that we're expecting to see leads on that within the first 24 hours. So it's pretty fast turnaround with not a lot of spend. And then our clients will range. I mean, like I said, it's a tap. And at the end of the day, generating leads and not having a plan for those leads is just wasted money anyways. Like we've had too many clients that come on the platform. They spend a bunch of money on leads that never even get contacted or reached out to. So don't do that. So test it a little bit if you need to make sure it works. So you're like, oh, it works. And then begin to build out that system. But like I said, it can be predictable revenue. Like we have some of the biggest agents in the country that are on our platform, and their budget is enormous, but it's because it's built into their systems. It's built into their process. And then it becomes like you can just scale. Like you never have to be a real estate agent that's waiting for the phone to ring. And I remember what that was like. I know that feeling. But when you've got the system dialed, you have endless opportunity to work on every single day, or your systems are working on for you every single day versus just wondering when that next deal is going to come from. We equate like running ads for real estate a little bit like digitally door knocking. You're just knocking on doors all day long while you're sleeping, while you're working, while you're driving. You're just knocking on all these doors, and then people start raising their hands. And now you start reaching out to them and providing value, always add value, provide value. And lo and behold, all these deals start showing up that you wouldn't have otherwise had access to.
I always like to think about marketing as a duplication of yourself. So could you talk about that a little bit, please? Like where you have some active prospecting methods such as door knocking and cold calling, and you can only do those by so much. But when it comes to like advertising and spending money, you can be out there almost 24/7. So I'd like to hear you talk about that and how Street Text helps with that.
Yeah, a great analogy as well. I think a lot about the sales process when we're building ads. And you should really compare the ads channel against your other channels. So that's a great example. Like if you have the time to door knock, you can definitely door knock. But if you're hiring somebody to go out and door knock for you, you have to think about how many doors can that person really get to in a day, and how much am I paying per day? Because if you compared that against, say, advertising, what you would find is your advertising dollars probably are going to go a lot further. Another channel, and again, I'm not saying don't do that channel because that channel has its own other benefits. Like mail is another good example. Some agents do direct mail, some don't. It's a long-term game. Everybody knows that, like when you're doing direct mail, but it's expensive. But if you compare the eyeballs seeing your pieces of mail versus the eyeballs you can get on that same spend on ads, no comparison, right? Like ads are going to go so much further. So I think it is important to just, when you're thinking about a particular activity or marketing activity, could ads do it for you cheaper than you were looking to do? Like we in our company, we have a role called like an SDR. I'm not sure if you're familiar with that, but it's like somebody that's doing a lot of like outreach ahead of time for the salespeople. So you could imagine that person was doing cold calls, but we don't do any cold calls. We don't ever cold call people because cold calling is a numbers game and it's hard. We can let ads do all of that for us, as an example.
Thank you for sharing that. So I have a few things to unpack. Like earlier, you mentioned like the lead generation, and I have a book and a podcast is named after my book. And when I first wrote the book, the name of the book was Remarketing. I was playing with, following up. I was playing on that, and then eventually I changed it to marketing implementation. But the reason why I wrote that entire book was because I realized that the real problem wasn't lead generation. The real problem was following up. So it was like easy to generate leads. And I even have a story. I had a partner, her name was Essie, and I got all these leads. She had so many leads, and it was like she couldn't handle them. So earlier you mentioned, like, don't just turn on the faucet. You have to be able to process and handle those deals. And a little later, you mentioned the sales process. So I would like to hear your perspective on that. Like, how do we handle leads? What's too much? What are some things that we should do, etc.?
Oh, that's yeah. I totally agree. Couldn't agree more. And but again, it's not rocket science, as you know. Like it can be set up, but it's important those things are set up. So just before I get into more of the sales conversion component or the tools, I do want to mention one thing too, because we totally agree with you. A big part of our application is actually ads remarketing as well. And the reason it is that to exactly what you're describing is that when a lead comes in for the first time or whatnot, they don't know who you are.
Mm-hmm.
But if they're seeing remarketing ads and those ads have got maybe video content or, information about schools in the area, or maybe even restaurants you like, or things about your team or testimonials, you're now paying pennies on the dollar to essentially nurture this lead with ads as well. So that's also an important strategy, which I didn't talk about earlier, but
Yeah,
that,
let's help us understand what is remarketing, because we're saying it, we kind of know what that is,
yeah.
but what does that mean to our audience? Remarketing, and also inside of the book, I've talked a lot about retargeting. So these aren't phrases that most people know, and I would like you to share with us what they mean.
Yeah, and actually, what I was just referring to there is typically called retargeting. We call it remarketing just because we're putting our own little thing on it, but really it's retargeting. And to Jerome's point, what that essentially means is if you've ever gone and shopped for a pair of shoes or something online on Amazon and you didn't buy it, and then you hop on a Facebook and lo and behold, the shoes that you were just looking at seem to be staring right in your face on the news feed, right? Or maybe you'll go to another website and there's another thing about the shoes. Like that's remarketing or retargeting in more the retargeting way. And that's just basically the ability to, like, people, advertisers, once you have who the person is and you have some intent, you can now continually market to that person with other ads. And it's a very, very effective strategy, as you know, especially when it comes to e-commerce or online sales, etc. We do the same thing with real estate, but we treat it slightly different because we know that a real estate lead, some of them are going to convert in like 7 days, but maybe it's like a distress sale or something that has to happen right now. But a lot of the leads that you're going to generate are going to be 3 months out, 6 months out, sometimes even longer. And so our purpose of the retargeting or remarketing ads is now to make sure that they do not forget who you are. You already have the lead, so you don't have to spend much money to stay in front of them. You can spend pennies on the dollar to be in front of them, but don't just stay in front of them like by with anything. Like, you could educate them. You can Jerome, you've got some incredible video content. You're a great example of this, where if a lead comes into your world, from that point on, as far as they're concerned, you're omnipresent. Like, they see you everywhere. And that's what we try to help with our clients. It's like, once a lead comes in, whether they come on your website or through our street tech system or whatever else, or through an open house that then you add into your database that connects into our program, we want to make sure that then they see your content everywhere. And so we have a whole bunch of stuff on our remarketing platform. We even have ad bundles. We rotate ads. We talk more about that later. But so that I hope that answers the first part of your question.
It does.
We really, really believe in that too. I think remarketing for your book, and I know you changed the name, but that's a good concept, because I even have said to people, what you should almost have is remarketing even before lead gen, because remarketing is like the net. So when you catch a lead, you're now staying in front of them. So many agents catch leads that just go to die, if you will. Like, nobody calls them. You have no automated system in place to stay in front of them. And so lo and behold, the lead works for somebody else, because that's as far as it went with you. But you paid this money. You paid all this money to get this lead, and it's this opportunity, right? So then I would say post that, then there's all sorts of great tools and systems. And so I'll pick a few. Not every agent uses the same ones, but everything from how your CRM is set up. I'd say a lot of our clients use tools like Follow Up Boss or Lofty or KV Core to manage a lot of the automation. We have big, powerful integrations with Follow Up Boss, as an example, where we sync the database 24/7. So any lead that's going in there is also automatically synced to any ads you got running on Street Text. Like, it's really cool the way it works. So you got CRM, and then there'll be additional tools that some people will add on, like automatic like there's a bunch of tools like Real Scout or Agent Fire or HomeBot as examples that they just help nurture the leads even further. But you don't need all those. But I would say that you need to have, everybody has a little bit of a different process, but they're somewhat similar. But you need to have some way of taking a lead from, I've generated this lead on Facebook. I have some automatic emails and text messages going out. I've got some remarketing ads going out. And I have some way of following up or staying in front of this lead on an ongoing basis. If you have that in place, you're 90% of the way there. And then you just need to make sure that you or your team members or somebody's checking in and calling or engaging those leads, getting those touch points up on an ongoing basis.
Thank you for sharing that. It's so important that we follow up. The lead generation, I'm not going to say it's easy, but that's one of the simplest parts. And then we got to follow up. I had a colleague, and I would always tell him, you got to follow up. Like, not everybody's ready right away. They say it's only about 1 to 3% of people are ready to do anything. So imagine what that's like when it's time to buy a house. It's probably even lower than that. So I always encourage people to make sure they follow up, and you get a lot of deals from the follow up.
Agreed.
Millions of leads. Can you share some insights, some things that you've learned in cultivating millions of leads? In the bio, it said 5 million.
Oh, at least.
So I would like to hear from you, like your experience. What are some things that you learned and some things that jumped out in dealing with all of these leads? And we know that you niche in real estate, but you do some stuff outside of real estate too. So all insights are welcome.
Oh, thank you. So so some commonalities and stuff. I think these are the things sitting in my shoes, on the other side of the table. And what I mean by that is, like, our team, our StreetText team, we have just worked for so many years with so many different agents. And one of the things I want to say about leads right out of the gate is, like, we'll have one agent that could, for instance, say there's no value to these leads, and another agent is crushing it with the leads. The leads aren't any different, right? But the processes and the mindset of that agent are entirely different. And so the results are ultimately very different. And that's an oversimplification for sure. And I'll try to break that up a little bit more. But in a nutshell, I would say that I've just heard so many times, and I can't really change someone's opinion coming in, but I've heard too many times somebody will even do a trial on StreetText. They'll get a few leads coming in, and then they'll have an expectation, which is hard to not have, and I get it. They'll have an expectation that if they call that lead or reach out to that lead, that lead is ready to buy or sell immediately on the phone call. And it can happen, but that is, in my mind, it's almost a little bit like you meet somebody for the very first time and you're offering them an engagement ring, right? Like, they have no idea who you are. They may not even remember, like, when you call them, they may not even necessarily link the fact that they clicked on your ad and your number's calling. You know what I mean? Like, there can be that disconnect. And so I think the thing that I've seen with all those leads is that, actually, I just want to add one thing to that first. What we've done in the past is we've taken our leads, lots of them, for our accounts, and we actually run that against public data in regards to homes that have listed and sold. And a huge percentage of all the leads we ever generate becomes a transaction within like a 3 to 6 month window. Enormous amount of them. The problem for a lot of agents is they didn't transact with them. Even though that person had the lead, they didn't transact with them. And the gap there is largely, and that's why our remarketing tool got built too, is that the agent generated the lead, and as we talked earlier, is just doing literally nothing with it, or has no real plan to do anything with it, or nothing even automated to do anything with it. And there's so many things that you can do just to add value. Like, you can use tools like I mentioned, HomeBot or something. There's lots of them out there where you can put a lead on that's providing information about their home. Like, even that's something, because it's now got your name and face and everything else. And if the person has a question, it gets linked up to you, right? And so I would say that out of all the leads, like, there's so many leads, there's so much value in the leads. If you're listening to it for the first time, or you're thinking about getting into the lead generation game, it really is about nurturing the leads and thinking about every lead as a real person, and how can you peel back the onion or the layers and add value so that you're essentially building trust. And once that trust is reached, you will win them. And that lead isn't just a lead. They probably have parents, or maybe they have a spouse, or maybe they have kids, or maybe they know a friend that's going through a divorce, and that lead sends you business. And we have had people do deals, not even with the lead, but with the fact that the lead has referred them somebody, as an example, because of all the value and how amazing the realtor was to this particular lead. Like that's the game change. Like you're just meeting people. Like lead
Mhm.
generation is about meeting people. And when you're meeting people and you're adding value, it's like an unlimited opportunity if that's framed in that mindset. Does that make sense?
It does make sense. And you like stole my thoughts because I was gonna give a tip and you took the tip from me, but my tip was gonna be like, these aren't just leads. And I even say like almost those exact words in my book. These aren't just leads. They have family and friends. They're people. And not only that, but they have other people they may refer you to that we never even think about. We never even think about it because, oh, they weren't ready right at that time. So and I was going to give that tip, and then I was going to ask you to give a tip on mentality, right? That was going to be my mentality. I wanted people to think like this is not just a lead, and I wanted them to think long term, because we talk about some of the technical ways on following up with these leads, and now I want to get into some of the mindset. So I want to hear from you. Uh, what is the right mindset, or some input and some tips for us to have the right mentality to nurture these leads and understand that it's not necessarily a short-term thing. It might be long-term, or it might not even come from that particular lead.
Well, so one thing for sure on that is just thinking past the lead itself. And you made a great point. We've even had agents that have said to us, "Oh, this lead's not ready. They said they're not ready to buy. I just want to delete them out of my database." And I was like, "Oh, like you can, but you don't know when that is." And they're
Mhm.
saying that today. But more importantly than that, you don't know who that person knows.
Mhm.
And if you keep adding value, and then I think people think to themselves, well, how am I going to add value? Oh, there's so many. So what we can talk about that. Like there's so many ways to add value. And one of them is through remarketing. And here's another example of where agents crush it. I know you had shared a stage, I believe in your bio, you've done a whole bunch of stuff with Krista Mashore. Well, she has used our platform a lot in the past as well. And one of the things that she does so well, and and agents can do this so well, is that if you are educating and remarketing to people, by the time she walks into a listing presentation, she's already won the listing. And the reason she's won the listing is because people feel like she's a celebrity before she even gets there. And our agents do the exact same thing, where if you've got remarketing content, you've got great content, Jerome. You're a great example of this, is that, again, when that first lead comes in and you're remarketing to them, when somebody sees you in a Starbucks or a Lowe's or some place, they're like, wow, I feel like I know Jerome. You don't even know who they are, but they feel like they know you because they see your content and they listen to your stuff. And so if you think about going into a listing presentation and you're the listing agent and there's some other agents that show up, who do you think they just have the subconscious desire to work with? You're the person that the highest trust with. You're the person that they know the most, even though they've never actually known you or met you yet. And that's the power again. So if you can get that mindset for people, like put that marketing hat on, put your marketing hat on, Rels. I'm not just a real estate agent. I'm a marketing guru. And as a marketing guru, I just want to be in front of all my leads in my database. I want to add value. And there's so many simple ways. Like I even hinted it earlier, but do a video on all the schools in the area. Do a video on like your favorite restaurants and why you love them. Do all these little things. And then of course you can do the more common stuff, like the pros and cons to, buying a home in this market, or the market updates, or the tips you need to know if you're selling, and do all that stuff too. That's good. And we actually have a lot of that content pre-made to help you. But do the personal stuff. Do the ones that are more, you don't even think it's going to scale, but it's just something that you enjoy. You will win every listing presentation. When you walk into somebody's house and you do something on animals and they love animals, you have won so far before any other agent gets in there. And so that would be my mindset for everybody on the call, is just think about that, because when you do it right, hardly anybody's doing it and you win all day long.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And then you went to, I was going to talk about, so they make fun of us as agents for putting our pictures on our business cards, but it works, right? It builds in familiarity. And further than that, you mentioned Krista. One of the things she's really big on is like video.
Oh,
And this is one of the things, we got to do video. We have to do video. So I would like to hear you talk about video and how Street Text helps people implement video so people can know who they are.
yeah. Yeah. So we've got a whole bunch of ads templates that are designed around video. So again, if you're going to launch a video ad, we have templates that'll typically work quite well for it. So
Mhm.
you just upload the video and then off it goes. We don't create any of the video creative assets for you, but I 1000% agree with you. it should be used. And here's a bit of an anomaly, though. It's not always to be true, but it actually seems to be still quite true. Is that we rely more, what we found is that static image ads or sometimes dynamic image ads work quite well on the lead generation side.
Right.
Video works a little bit less good on the lead generation side overall. It doesn't not work, but video plays a little bit different, and it's more of like an educational thing. So where we find video incredibly powerful is once you've generated this lead. So an example is they maybe come in on a list of homes that you're offering or something, and the lead's in, they're interested. It's now you can show all this video content to them. And so I hope this ties into your question. Like, we make it really simple to deploy the ad with video. We also can turn your Facebook posts that you've ever created in the past, if they had high engagement, they can automatically become ads, which is a crazy strategy. And you can actually rotate those videos. So maybe I should just make this one comment just on the platform, because this is where people can go wrong as well. People get excited about video content and they get excited about remarketing. And then they start creating all these remarketing ads. But then they realize really quickly on Facebook, if I've created 15 remarketing ads and I'm so excited to run them, and I've put them all, let's say $10 a day, I'm now spending, $150 a day on these ads. Oh, I can't do that. Okay, I'll dial them down to say $1 a day. But I'm still spending $15 a day, and I've got these 15 pieces of content, but I really want people to see this content. So we solved that using a tool called ad bundles. And so how ad bundles work is you can take those 15 pieces of content, put them in an ad bundle in our platform. And then what our system does is it rotates those ads based on the audiences that you select. And so that's become a game changer for people too, because now in the case I'm spending $1 a day, but I still have my 15 ads, but they're rotating. So the engagement's high, the frequency is good. People aren't getting, there's no ad fatigue. It's perfect. It's rotating nicely. And then what you can also do is you can look at your 15 pieces of content and you can see how each one's performing. So you can pull one out or maybe add another one in, and you can actually build those ad bundles around like sellers, buyers, maybe you got a for sale by owner strategy. So anyways, I would say that's a really good technique if you're doing remarketing, but you want to keep your budget tight, and you can just have endless content being added to them.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. Stephen, could you tell us about Street Text one more time? How we can access and
Yeah. Well, one other thing I would mention that I've never mentioned anywhere before, and this will be the first one for those that maybe listen to this, because hopefully you'll see it by the time it's out. But if you don't, I don't want you to miss it. We have some really cool, we have a really cool new, what we call our light plan or a different plan that is still incredibly powerful, but it's very cost effective. And so if you don't see that available in our system, you can email me, Stephen with a PH at streettext.com, if you're curious about that. So Stephen at Street Text. But yeah, if you wanted to learn more about Street Text, you can come to our product. We have a trial that you can demo. It says 7 days on it, but you can try it longer. We want to make sure it's working for you. And then you can become a user of the platform if you so choose. So yeah, hopefully that answers that.
It does. Stephen, how can we learn more about you online, personally?
Yeah, Amy, if you want to learn more about me, I spend a lot of time on Facebook. I'm an introvert as well. I think you mentioned that in your bio.
Yeah.
So everything that I create publicly is always effort is required. So I have huge respect for introverts. But you can definitely find me online. I'm not as I don't post all the time, but connect with me. I'd love to message with you, stay engaged, and I do post the odd thing as well.
Okay. Stephen, if you could give the audience 3 books to read, 3 book recommendations, what would they be and why?
Oh, okay. So a great book that I would recommend for real estate agents is a good friend of mine is a guy named Dan Martell. And he wrote a book called Buy Back Your Time. And, I've done all sorts of coaching with Dan. We've been part of some of his, anyways, I've had access to a lot of different founders, and it is amazing how long it took me to fully realize what the buy back your time concept really means. And so one of the best productivity hacks I have today is I have this incredible EA that runs my email and a whole bunch of other things. And so I would say that's a great read, because it'll really get you just thinking about where can I buy back my time overall? And as you're starting to scale, not from day one, but as you start to scale, you do need to think about how to kind of offload tasks and really buy that time back. That's a great one. Oh man, other books. I read a lot of books. I'm trying to think of the top of my head what some other really good ones are. I must read too many. Let me just see really fast here. I read a lot of different things. It's not always about business.
Okay.
So really, really quick.
Give them to us. We hear business all the time.
Yeah. Okay. Well, one I've just been reading recently, which has been scaring me, is a book called Outlive by Peter Attia. But I don't know if I fully. It's a really good one on health and like the longevity of living longer. That was what I was just recently reading. But I'm trying to think of some other ones. Like they've just been really, really stand out to me. Oh man, there's so many. You know, I Think and Grow Rich is obviously a classic.
Okay.
Atomic Habits by James Clear is obviously another great book.
Okay.
Yeah,
You're taking care of us.
Ones I'll mention for now.
If you could close us out with one word, no explanation, what word would that be, Stephen?
Ooh, one word: innovation.
Word. Innovation. All right, Stephen, this has been excellent. I appreciate your time. Thank you so much for today. This was one of my more exciting episodes, so I appreciate you.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you, Jerome.
Thank you.
Appreciate the kind words.